Hi, and welcome to Worried About Nothing. Today, we thought we would record a conversation after having seen a video that some of you may have seen about some Facebook whistleblowers that have come forward to talk about how data and posts are being manipulated and suppressed. So, we thought it'd be interesting to have a conversation about that. I'm Kim.
And I'm Danielle.
And welcome to our show. So, it was interesting watching that video. I think it's probably been circulating ironically on Facebook. But like you were saying, actually, before we started recording, it's a very good point, because those of us who've been aware of this know that this has been happening, but it's been nice seeing the confirmation and kind of, I guess, hearing the techno speak of the Facebook whistleblowers.
Yeah, I know that there were documents released as well. I guess one of the insiders had given documents to Project Veritas, and I went on their site to try to find them, which I couldn't. I don't know if it was just because I was on my phone. I didn't have a chance to do it on the computer because I wanted to see in more detail. I did see some posts on their Instagram page where they shared like screenshots of the information. And I was actually kind of surprised to see how in depth it was, like the criteria that they're having the people kind of read through and check these boxes as they come across posts to kind of rank them and decide, I guess, how low or how far they're going to suppress them. I didn't realize it was that detailed. I thought it was more like, oh, we see something that feels, kind of against what we'd like it to be, let's just derank it. I didn't realize there was kind of like this scoring system, which what it seems to be.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, they've got the dual sort of layers. So they've got the Autobots, and then they've got the human backup as well, just to spot those things that, like some of us are trying to do, spelling things differently or whatever it is, in our very cunning plan, a very cunning way.
It's getting more and more creative, though. I've been
It
quite
is, though,
impressed
absolutely.
with what people
Yeah,
are coming up with. Often I'm like, what is this person talking about? And then through context, I can.
yeah, I know. At first, I was like, who is this Maxine that people are talking about?
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's interesting to see that it's so detailed, as you said, because those of us who've been over the past year or longer been protesting this or writing about this are very aware of the fact that you get blocked, you get censored. And I'm very aware personally that since I had my first Facebook warning telling me that, mistakes happen. So I'm sure I'm sure this is an error on your part, as I said something like, fuck Facebook, fuck vaccines, or something like that. Ever since then, I've been
sure
very...
this was a mistake.
I know, yes. I'm sure it was a typo, But ever since then, I've been very aware that my posts are not being seen by as many people, so they're definitely being suppressed. Because normally you get used to a certain number of people commenting or what have you, because we share the same interests. But recently, it's like they're disappearing into this ether, this black hole of nothingness, which is so... I mean, it's all wrong and rude, but to suppress people's posts without them being aware of it, it's kind of keeping alive the illusion that free speech is still something that exists on Facebook, but we're just going to suppress your posts so nobody can see them. But you think you're talking to your friends, but no, you're talking to yourself in a dark room,
Right.
which is just, in some ways, it's almost as bad as, getting the warnings or getting your account suspended or whatever it is. Because
Yeah.
at least that's honest,
Right, right. At least you kind of know about it.
Yeah.
This way you don't know about it. Or, well, we had our assumptions, right? Or our things that we thought were happening. But like you said before we started recording, that this is kind of confirmation. Having these
Yeah.
whistleblowers come forward and share this information is confirming things that we kind of already knew.
Mm.
It is interesting though, because I was thinking about how my Facebook got disabled, and I was like, I don't remember getting a warning. I don't remember them warning me about anything. And I just thought it was kind of odd. And I didn't have a lot of friends. I was planning on getting rid of my Facebook. I pared everything down just to be in the groups, WLS and the healing group, all of Aratima's groups, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, my reach was like so tiny, very small group of people. So for them to disable my Facebook, I was like, I don't know, it's just kind of very strange to me.
But I guess it's because you're looking at it from a logical perspective. But if they've got these weird bots that are just flying around and kind of checking keywords, you must have used a very, very dangerous word at least once, you know.
Right. Very dangerous person.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny because sometimes I'll bring it up to people, right? Just it'll come up, I don't know, randomly almost in conversation and be like, oh, yeah, you know, I got kicked off of Twitter or my Facebook was disabled. And people are like, wait, what? Why? Like, why? I was like, I don't know. They don't give you an explanation as to why.
No.
They don't. Well, I mean, Twitter does, but it's more the Facebook one that people ask about a little bit more. But people tend to be surprised because they're like, what are you talking about? Because they know me as a person, you know?
Yeah.
And they're like, why would they kick you off of anything? Is kind of the response. Which I'm kind of glad I have that reputation, you know?
But it does seem to be, to an extent, arbitrary, you know, in that, let's say there's a group of 10 people all posting the same kind of things, which, as we all are doing, and 2 will get kicked off. And it's not necessarily according to who's got the biggest number of friends or followers or anything like that. It just seems to be there is an arbitrary thing. So maybe these Autobots are kind of programmed to seek out certain dangerous words, you know, more than others. I don't know. It's just very, very strange. But it's a really scary idea that this is happening, and we do know it's happening. But as they said in the video, that it's, if this is accepted and seen as normal and okay, it will spread to not only the vaccine, but then anything else, anything that endangers your safety, in inverted commas, you know, and safety being a word that's so bastardized these days, it can mean anything. So it's basically going to curtail any kind of speech that goes against the, you know, the status quo or the sort of the political party line or whatever you want to call it. And if, as they say, it ripples out to, you know, all social media platforms, all Google, internet, all types of whatever it is, as it has done to a certain extent, but if it does even more, then it's, you know, free speech is completely strangled, apart from, you know, face to face. And then I'm sure they'll get people to pop up next to you and go, you said this word, slap or something.
Or your phone
you know?
will start going off. Don't listen to this person. They don't know what they're talking about. Or the next recommendation on your phone is like something that's the exact opposite of what that person was talking about. And they're like, see, this article's right here.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is crazy. I mean, I think one of the things, as we've realized recently, or I realized recently, and I didn't quite understand that we were doing this, but speaking about freedom, it's a very important thing to us on Worried About Nothing, you know, and I feel that freedom of speech is obviously a very important aspect of freedom. And I'd like to explore that theme more, you know, in the coming weeks, months, maybe. Just different kind of freedoms. What do they mean? How are they being curtailed? What are you doing to fight them? What, you know, all of this kind of thing, because it's so important. Because I think it's very easy to slip into this lethargy or this acceptance of things as they're drummed into you constantly. You know, we've seen it with the masks, we've seen it with the vaccines. I mean, we were joking before we started recording that, you know, people now, it's gone from, oh, keep away from me, to, oh, I've had both vaccines, I'm fine, as they breathe all over you, you know, kind of thing. And it's just whatever the narrative is, people are just sucking up without even thinking about. So you have to think about it. You have to think about it, you know, but you have to question it for sure, and stand up to it as well. Because if people just go along with it, it's just going to be, you know, a slippery slope to no freedom whatsoever, and gratitude for the 2 grains of rice you get a day, you know, to keep you alive or whatever. I mean, a slight exaggeration, but you know.
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. And I just think that people now are just so tired. So they just feel so drained of the way that they're living currently, right? Working, and they feel like they don't have any time. So the resistance, I don't think, for a lot of people is there. They like to have the energy to kind of fight against it. And they're like, oh, it's just easier to, you know, do whatever. They're just asking this, they're just asking that. And I don't think it's really seen like the progression of things. And it can be tough. It can be tough to see, especially if you believe that, you know, everyone in the world is good, right? Because you're like, who would want to do that? Why would someone want to do that to me? Or let alone a group of people do that to another group of people? But I just think it's blatant. I mean, when you see things come out like this with the Facebook whistleblowers and saying, these people are specifically trying to quiet this type of speech. And it's like people who have had their own personal experiences with the vaccines that are being curtailed. It's their own experience with it. And you're saying that you're going to suppress that? Like that to me just doesn't make any sense. It's their lived experience, and you're saying, well, that doesn't really matter, or that's not really important, or like, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense. I think lived experiences are one of the more important things. When someone shares a personal experience that they had with me, it has more weight to what's occurring, as if they can like talk about it from a personal place than if they're talking theoretically. Because I don't know, you can tell when someone shares a story with you, when it's real, when it's something that happened to them. It's just really different. It's kind of like, I think sometimes when they interview people about aliens too, it's like when someone's telling you a story that happened to them, you're like, oh, okay, like you can tell the person's like how they're speaking about it and everything, that this was something that they experienced, versus just being like, oh yeah, I think aliens exist because of X, Y, and Z. It's a logical probability, the universe is huge, blah blah blah, all that sort of thing. Way different.
Oh, sure, definitely, I agree. And I think that's why those are the kind of stories that are being quashed so much, maybe even more than anything else that's posted, because the personal experiences have that ring of truth and people know it's truth. So that's why they're being suppressed, and even the language they use, it's a very distancing language. So they're calling it vaccine hesitancy. So you could post something like, my grandmother died because she had a vaccine, and that would be classified as vaccine hesitancy, to make it seem kind of vague and a little bit distant and not very personal and all these things. And it's all just a really cunning, creative plan. It's thought out very in detail. And that's how people are accepting things, because vaccine hesitancy has that kind of, oh, okay, so you're not sure, that's all right, okay, we can accept that. Whereas anti-vaccine immediately is very kind of puts a stand, you're making a stand, so there's a kind of, oh, us and them kind of thing. So people would stop and go, oh, so they're not for vaccines, as opposed to, oh, they're not sure, okay, that's all right. It makes it so much more vague and more acceptable and palatable and all that kind of thing. And it makes what they're doing so much more acceptable in the eyes of people who hear it as well. Because if Facebook says, okay, so we're just trying to help out the people who are vaccine hesitant, the majority of people who don't know what that means would go, oh, okay, fair enough. Whereas if they said, we're trying to stamp out anyone who's saying anything different to what we are trying to promote as the message, we are actually being dictators here, the majority of people would not go, oh, great, okay. Dictate to us.
Hopefully people would go, why?
Yeah.
Oh god.
It's all just so insidious, and it's just so creepy, really. Twisting everything. Because not all words, but so many words they've twisted the definition of, like safety. Once upon a time, safety meant life or death, or but now it's safety is being afraid of things that you're being told to be afraid of that aren't actually scary. Your safety. Oh, Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I'm actually getting suspicious of them changing the words, like the definitions of words in the dictionary. I mean, like, I don't have a physical dictionary that's like older, as far as I know. We had a house fire in 2007, so I don't think a dictionary is something we went on and bought because we were in the technological age after that. But I would think it would be interesting to look up certain words and see how the definitions changed over time versus what's on the internet and what's in the actual dictionary, because I suspect that some things have changed.
Oh, definitely. Oh, for sure. I'd agree. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And some of them I've seen posts about that I can't remember off the top of my head now, obviously, because, I'll remember tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I don't remember right now. But yeah, we've seen them, and they've been really kind of sly shifts as well. So it's not been completely changing the meaning of the word or the definition of the word, but just adding a little caveat, or adding a little something that shifts the meaning enough that it no longer means what it means, but you can persuade yourself that it still does, you know, that kind of thing. And it's all just bullshit. It's all just lies. It's all lies.
Yeah. It's pretty difficult, honestly. I can feel myself getting worked up about it. It can be tough because it feels like there's so little from an individual standpoint that you could do. So it's helpful to come back to the spiritual study that we do for me, and understanding that falling back into that isness is a supportive thing to do in this time, is not losing your cool. You know,
Yeah.
especially if there's no practical action that you can see in front of you to be taken, then it's better to let it go and, you know, just not hold on so tightly to the stories that are happening in front of me, I suppose.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. But I feel also at the same time that there's a certain I don't know whether you'd call it divine rage or something, but there's a certain kickback in me against lies. It's not true. It's the opposite of truth. It's lies, it's manipulation, it's deception, it's corruption. Those are all wrong, you know, and it's not me being kind of, you know, well, it is me being black and white, actually. Yes, it's wrong. It's against anything that's true and right, you know. So there is that sense that it's okay to feel passionate about it or passionately against it, as long as I'm not making myself suffer about it, you know, in the sense that when somebody comes in and they say something like, oh, it's all right, I've had 2 vaccines, love, you know, it's fine, I'm just going to shed all over you, it's okay, and whatever, and masks are right, and vaccines are the only way that the world is going to, you know, continue, and people who don't get vaccinated should die, and all that sort of stuff, I'll feel a response rising up in me, which is, I want to kill you. You know? And
I know, isn't it crazy?
but it's at the same time, I don't because at first I thought, okay, I should censor it and I should love them all and all this kind of thing. And now it's like, well, yeah, I can still love you while wanting to punch your face in. It's okay. The two can exist, you know, because it's not that I want to kill the person. It's more that I don't, I just can't stand for that lie. You know, I can't just let that lie slide past and go, oh, it's okay. So for me, it's, I don't know whether it's just where I'm at the moment, which is very much lies are painful, that it's like nails on a blackboard, you know, you kind of have that ooh reaction to it. And as long as you don't carry that ooh reaction with you all throughout the day, you know, it's okay. But it seems to have to move through in that way.
Yeah, I was finding that I had an interesting experience of having that kind of anger come up in an interaction and being like, let's see. I think the thought I had was more like, okay, and you probably have the vaccine, and I kind of hope that takes you out, sort of thing. And I was just like, oh my god. But it wasn't, you know, it's just one of those thoughts that kind of moved through, and I was like, I'm not going to attach to it or judge myself over it. But I was just like, wow. I was like, that was a very like kind of angry and almost mean, maybe traditionally nasty thought to think. But I actually think there's some truth to that. And it's just because I don't know. I don't honestly don't know why it moved through, but there's a sense of with the way that the times are, right? You're gonna have to be a certain type of person to make it through all of this anyway. So you're either gonna make the decisions that take you out of it, or you're gonna start getting with it, so to speak. You know, get with the program, not the programming.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel also, because sometimes when this happens, because I've spent a lot of time suppressing things throughout my life, you know, and I always remember back to the retreat, not the last one we were physically at, I think it was, when there was that spiritual ego rose up in somebody, and there was I had a really strong reaction to it, and I was trying to suppress it because I thought, oh, this is not loving, it's not, you know, being spiritual to feel this rage and wanting to strangle them and bang their head against the wall. It's very, very wrong, you know. And then I remember Jason and Aratima talking to me about it, and I said, no, it's good. There's no more Miss Nice Kim, because this is a cover. So feel the rage, feel what you're feeling, because if it feels true to you, feel it, you know. And so since then, I've not been suppressing as much, you know. So if that moves through, it moves through. If I feel it, I feel it. And I'm not beating myself up about it, because it feels like it's almost a stand against untruth. So if you're standing against lies, you can't be wishy-washy, or you can't be, I feel that we've spoken about this before, but sometimes in the new age community or the love and light community, it can be very much about, oh, turn the other cheek and love them and be kind and be loving and all this sort of thing, which can sometimes just be so untrue that the terminology again is twisted and doesn't, isn't representative of what the words actually stand for. Whereas I feel that there is a warrior aspect to being on the spiritual journey as well. And it feels like when I react to things, I mean, I don't always, but sometimes I can let things pass and I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, okay. Oh, you want to vaccinate me? No, you're not going to do that. It's fine. But other times, sometimes it just moves through and it's like this fire. And I just let it because I have no idea why or why not, it's happening. But it feels like there is a warrior aspect, as I say, to this spiritual journey. And when it bursts out, it's kind of, yeah. So I think you raised a good point as well before we started recording. You were saying that something like it feels like things are opening up more, and so these whistleblowers coming forwards feels like part of that too. It feels like I think Aratima speaks of it, that we've hit some kind of critical light mass or something, or there's some turning point, and others have mentioned it too, and it does feel like that. People are finding the courage to step forward and speak out. And for example, these marches, there's another march on Saturday that I'm going to go to, and apparently it's going to be the biggest one ever. Don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people. I'm sure I'll tell you all about it on Sunday.
I can't wait to hear about it.
But there's just that feeling of it as well, and that seems to be growing. More and more people are going to these marches because they're all global and they're happening simultaneously, or on the same day. And it just feels like there's more and more people attending, and it just feels like a wider and wider thing. Like, for example, it wasn't a march that I went to, but there was a rally at Trafalgar Square last year, and the police were there, and it got violent and got ugly, and at some of the beginning marches, the police were there and there were, scuffles and that kind of thing. But the one I went to last, on the 15th, the police just stood by the side of the road, waved at us. Some of them smiled, and there was no interference whatsoever. And it kind of feels like things are just loosening up a little bit somehow. I don't know. I can't really qualify how, but just a sense.
Yeah, that is interesting. I do feel that that things are moving in the so-called right direction.
Yeah.
I do think more and more stuff is kind of coming out more rapidly than it had been before. I'm happy about it. I can't say that I'm not happy about it. I do have this sense of like control in me though. It's like wanting to know what's gonna happen next. Oh no, how are people gonna react? The people who aren't already aware of stuff. And I'm like, who's picking up on this? And I don't know why I have all these concerns, but like, because those sorts of questions will come up and be like, okay, maybe from living in New York or just knowing a lot of people who aren't paying attention to this stuff, I'm like wondering what will be the things that'll get them to go, oh, this is something, or oh, maybe I should pay attention to this, stuff like that. I'm just there. I don't know why there's that concern there, but I noticed this kind of experience within myself, so that's something that I'll have to let go of. Keep an eye on. Just move on.
It's a human reaction though, isn't it? I mean, it's a very human thing to kind of want the people you care about to understand.
Yeah, I think it's part of a control thing though too. So that's why I was like, I really want to let that pattern go, because that's something that it's just a halting way to live and trying to control stuff. And I'm just noticing that it's coming up in this way too. Is trying to, I don't know, at least I guess have that curiosity of knowing, will this do that or whatever, and it's not necessary. I don't need to know.
It's funny because in some ways it feels like forever since all of this started, last March or whatever it was. It feels like decades ago, but at the same time it feels like it's just a blink and nothing's changed, and you kind of like, but it's still March 2020. Oh no, it's not, it's May 2021. Hang on a second, how did that happen? It's weird. It's funny.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. It kind of has that feeling for me as well. I feel like 2020, like just this time of lockdowns, will be a very strange time, almost like a void when you look back on, if you ever look back on the times in your life and stuff. It'd be like, what was 2020? But almost like in a way that it's forgotten, not like remembered negatively. I feel like it's almost going to be like, oh yeah, that's right, 2020 was the pandemic times, like whatever. It'll be kind of like a nothing happened. As
Yeah, yeah,
weird as that sounds, it's kind of the
yeah,
vibe that I get from it.
yeah, sure.
Maybe that's just because it was my vibe through the whole thing and being like, nothing's actually happening.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's true though, because I mean, even looking at it now, it was a whole lot of drama over nothing. It was all in made up, fabricated shit that made us stay home, you know. And it's like, well, why? This is very strange. I'm sitting in my living room because people are being lied to constantly. Oh, okay. You know, it's just strange. Yeah. Yeah. But I think, was it March last year when we first talked about it? I can't remember now. Was I think it was March when we started doing the podcast, round about then, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I had just gotten back to my parents' house. I think I had come here back for my mom's birthday.
Oh, okay.
And it was around the time that they were like, okay, we're going to be out of the office for 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, I'll just stay at my parents for 2 weeks. And we recorded our first podcast. And then 2 weeks turned into a year. And now I don't have a place in New Hampshire anymore. And yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All change. God, yeah. I remember it now. Because we'd just come back from the retreat, hadn't we? So, and I think on the plane back was my first time seeing somebody with a mask. And he was sitting kind of, on the aisle across the aisle and the seat next to me. And I just remember I kept kind of looking at him out of the corner of my eye going, what the fuck is he doing? Why is he wearing a mask? That is so weird. So strange. And then he kept taking it off to eat and drink. And I was like, why the fuck do you just take it off all the time? What are you doing? Because it was just so bizarre.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that you had that experience on the plane, and I'm sure looking back at that now is like, if you only knew what was to come.
I know. Those were the days when he was in the minority. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I still hadn't fully understood. Well, wasn't really paying attention to all this stuff. So in London, before I left to go to the retreat, I didn't see anyone in a mask. So coming back was the first time I heard about it. And I only really knew about it because I think at the retreat, people had been saying, oh, I'm not sure if we'll be able to, meet in person for the next one. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I kind of thought, okay, that's interesting. I didn't really know much about that, And then seeing this guy in the mask that I kept staring at, I must have given him a complex though, because every time he looked at me, I was going, just staring fixedly at him. But it was just so strange. Yeah, anyway. And he was the first person I saw disinfecting his hands as well. And it was kind of like, what are you doing?
Wow.
Why are you wiping yourself constantly? It's just so weird. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's fun. It's interesting though, because that's like what's considered normal, I guess. Now you wouldn't even question it because you know what everybody's been fed, and you're like, oh, yep, okay, that person's doing it. They're following the script or whatever it is. So.
But it's like Pavlov's dog. It's like, because we've got a disinfect one of those sanitizer bottle things at work because you have to have one apparently. But people come in, they look at it, and they immediately disinfect their hands. And they probably just come from another shop next door when they disinfected their hands. But it's that kind of Pavlov dog response. They'll see the disinfectant, pump it immediately, wipe it all over their hands and arms, adjust their mask, and then carry on talking to me. And I'm going,
oh God, yeah.
That's hideous.
Oh, I wouldn't be able to do that because we'd get in the car sometimes, and then my parents would both, hand sanitize or whatever, and I was like, I cannot breathe back here. Yeah. It was so bad, just like the alcohol smell. It was so bad. I remember I was taking dance classes in person like last year during the summer, maybe even, And I would just walk right by the hand sanitizer thing. They'd have it on a desk and a sign, sort of like, please, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nope, just walk right by it.
Yeah.
No, someone asks me something, I'll talk to them about it then. But I was like, I'm not doing it until I have to. I hate stuff like that.
Oh, it's hideous. I've never used it. And in the UK, people are so polite, so there'll be somebody by the door with one of those disinfectant sanitizer things, and they'll go, "Would you like to sanitize your hands?" My response all the time is, "No," and carry on walking.
If you're going to give me a choice, then definitely not.
Ask
Would
me
you like to?
question.
No. Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly. Thanks. Oh, God.
Yeah. Strange times. But hey.
It is strange. I'm happy about the Facebook whistleblowers, though. I really am.
Yeah.
I hope more people come forward. I honestly don't know why people wouldn't come forward. Like, if I had anything to share, I mean, like, I guess I'm kind of in a unique position, too, though, because I don't have a family that I have to provide for or anything, so. But I'd still probably want to do it anonymously, but maybe for other reasons, because I'd want to stay on the inside and get as much information out as possible. But yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat if I had any information um, about corruption. Because, like, really? You know what I mean? It's just like, do you really want corruption to be happening anywhere? So if you're aware of corruption wherever you are, don't you think the best idea is to expose it? Because then you'd hope that whatever other situations, entities that you're interacting with, you're hoping that they're not corrupt. When we talk about organizations, people too, but specifically institutions in this case, you would like to think that they're not corrupt. So if you are experiencing corruption in the place where you are, to me, the obvious thing would be to expose it, because you'd hope that whatever institutions you're also interacting with, or that you're not aware of corruption, that if they were corrupt, that someone would be stepping forward there as well. That's my thought process with that. So.
But I think one of the whistleblowers raised a good point. I mean, they raised a number of good points, but the second one that spoke said that the way things are set up, and this could be said not only for this whole, vaccine hesitancy and the way that social media is set up these days, but about the whole pandemic. I can't even say that word without my fingers going up into inverted commas. But anyway, is that people are made to feel like they're isolated, that they're on their own, they're the only one feeling this. Therefore, to do anything or say anything out of the comfort zone, or the what they're told is the norm, is to stand up and be shot, basically. But these days, more and more people would agree with them. Like the Facebook whistleblowers were saying that about 25%, I think, of the staff at Facebook agree with them, but they can't say, or they're not allowed to talk about it. They're too afraid to talk about it. And I've seen some posts on Facebook recently where I think one of them was, I can't remember who posted it, but this guy was saying that 60 or 70% of US citizens have declined or refused the jab, and that number has just grown exponentially in the last, I think, couple of months. And so the majority now of people, if this person is what they say is true, the majority of people are against it. So the majority of people are the ones that are being made to feel like they're isolated and alone and the only one believing something, and it's that fear, it's that really insidious way of making everyone feel singled out, or kind of without backup, or solitary, or whatever the word you want to use is, when in reality, again, if one person speaks up, like these Facebook whistleblowers, if one person speaks up, hopefully that will give somebody else the courage to speak up, and another person and another person and another person. And before you know it, that's, let's say 60% of Facebook going, yeah, we all disagree with that asshole. We're not doing this anymore. And like one of them said, losing their job is nothing against helping to create a world that his children or her children could live in, or the kind of world that he wanted or she wanted their kids to live in. I don't know if it was male or female, I'm not sure. But yeah, and that's what it's about. So it's like you were saying earlier, what can one person do? It's like, well, one person can speak out to help another person speak out, and help another person speak out. And hopefully, as they build and grow, it's many, many voices. Like, so for example, this march on Saturday, if there's, let's say, 300,000 of us, take a lot of police to stop that. And some of the people that go to these things kind of think that they're the only person in their office or the only person in their group of friends who believes this, and coming together with people who believe the same things is just amazing for them, because not everyone's as lucky as we are, and that we can get together in groups and chat and all that sort of stuff. Because some people I see in other groups say, well, this is the only place I can talk about this, because my entire group of friends, my entire family has had the vaccine. They all think I'm crazy. I mean, I could say,
I'm sorry, I was just going to say that's where I think social media can actually be a really good tool, because you can find other people who have the same thoughts that you do. I was connected with someone recently who didn't feel like they had a lot of people that they could talk to. And I was connected through someone I knew to them, and they were like, hey, would you mind? And I was like, not at all. I was like, I would hate to feel like I was alone in this. So, and I think everybody who kind of sees the world the way that we do, of course we want to talk to other people who see it that way. It's not like we would ever shun someone. No, you're too late. We've been talking about this for however long, and you're too late to the party. Sorry, no, you're not welcome. Like I've met people who I only know online now, but through posting the things that I believe are truth, or following things that I believe are truth, and that you just make connections that way, right? You comment on something and you're like, yeah, I really agree with this. This is amazing. People follow you, you follow them back, and sometimes it turns into more messages, kind of like friendships and stuff form, and I'm thankful for that. And it's interesting because you still get different perspectives, because everyone's at a different place in their truth journey. You know what I mean? So people will be like, oh, have you heard about this? And it's like, oh yeah, I knew about that however long ago. Or somebody's like, did you hear about that? No, I've never heard that before. All these different things. And everybody still has a slightly different angle, and that's kind of what I really love about it. Like there's this woman that I started following real recently, and she even talks about herself that they try to make it seem like you can't interact with someone who shares any view that's different from your own. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was amazing. This is a woman who was talking about why she really dislikes critical race theory, which the videos are pretty good. So yeah, I just thought it was amazing. I was like, wow, the internet and people are not afraid to speak up anymore. This woman, she's blatantly putting it out there. She's like, I'm doing a video on this. I was like, she's like, I'm just tired of seeing it, and no hero's coming to save me. So I guess I'm going to have to take the punches or something, essentially is what she said. And I was like, that's amazing. Bravo. So exciting. Everyone just have a little bit more courage to talk about. And it's almost comes from a place of, it's a deep place of truth, but it's just like, I can't take it anymore. So it's kind of like that true anger, or that true like movement that you're kind of talking about before, is like, because there was some sort of motivation, a real energy behind it, because like it's like, okay, this is where I draw the line. I need to say something about this, and then posting it on the internet, I guess, is kind of the move. So I mean, it's cool. I'm very thankful that not everything is super censored or controlled to the point where none of this can get out to one another. We still have our podcast is still up. We're still here. There could be, I'm sure at some point with technology or whatever, where you'd go to post a video like the last one you posted, and it wouldn't even get past the review process. It wouldn't even make it onto the internet. And thank God we're not going in that direction, and that's not going to be the case. But I'm just really happy that it isn't. And I guess just putting it out there for people who do feel alone, that you can find people. There are people out there. Talk to me. Find me on social media. I'll talk to you.
Everyone look out for Danielle.
Right. You can talk to me.
Yeah. No, fantastic. That was our conversation about freedom of speech and the Facebook whistleblowers. If you liked what you heard, please do like our video and subscribe. Hit the bell button, subscribe, share with all of your friends, and people you don't know, share it with everybody. And thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.